أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. We seek refuge to God from Satan, the rejected, in the name of God, most gracious, most merciful. God willing, we will start another English Quran study with the Surah number 37 from verse 80. And this is the continuation of the verses which was about Prophet Noah. So, inshallah, I will start from this verse. We thus reward the righteous. He is one of our believing servants. We drowned all the others. So this is the end, like the end of the story of uh, Noah, as far as this part of this verse, these verses in this surah actually are concerned. And we know what happened with the people of Noah, those who believed in God alone. They got on the ark, and the ark, as we know it from Quran, were just logs tied together with primitive ropes, and we know that the livestock which was mentioned in Quran were actually the livestock of Prophet Noah, and not all the actually birds and all the animals on the surface of the planet Earth, which Satan actually made a funny story out of this and made it quite improbable. That's why people don't believe in that. And the ark that you have seen in the movies and in your probably in your textbooks when you were growing up is not the ark that actually has been described in the Quran. And from the verses of the Bible, you see that it has been tampered with. And if you look at the story of Noah in the Bible, you see that it has been tampered with. And there's another interesting thing that the Messenger of Covenant says about the ark of Prophet Noah, and that is the fact that nail, as we know it, iron, like iron nails, were not created or invented until the time of Prophet David, which is way, way, way back, down the legacy of the prophets. So Prophet David and his son Prophet Solomon came after Moses, and so basically it has been impossible for Prophet Noah back then, which could have been probably maybe 12,000 years ago, maybe more, maybe less. We don't have a complete record of it. We have the record in the Bible, and the Messenger of Covenant mentioned that, but that's an approximation that I'm giving you. But Prophet Noah didn't have nails to be used on the ark. That is why the things that we see in the movies as the ark of Prophet Noah, and it had 3 stories. These are all wrong. These are all misconceptions, and they're not true. And even the place which was drowned was the area of the Dead Sea, today's Dead Sea between Palestine and Jordan, if I'm not mistaken. If you look on the map, you will see the Dead Sea in the Middle East. And then the thing is that so all these things have been tampered with. And what happens is that when people read the story of Noah in the Bible or hear about it, they become actually disheartened with religion, because they think that they think about this fact that this could not be true. And they are right. It is not true. And the truth about Noah and the ark has been mentioned in yes, the Quran. So let me just mute. Okay, all right. Yes, so mashallah, I will continue with the next verses about Prophet Abraham. Verse 83, among his followers was Abraham. He came to his Lord wholeheartedly. He said to his father and his people, what are you worshipping? Is it these fabricated gods instead of God that you want? What do you think of the Lord of the universe? He looked carefully at the stars. Then he gave up and said, I'm tired of this. They turned away from him. He turned on their idols, saying, Would you like to eat? Why do you not speak? He then destroyed them. They went to him in a great rage. So, up to this point, if we pay attention to the verses about Prophet Abraham, there is a lot to be said about Prophet Abraham. And as we know from the verses of Quran, we know that God has told us that Abraham was a monotheist and he was never an idol worshiper. So basically, and as Messenger of the Covenant in one of the Quran studies mentioned, it was not that he was not sure about the fact that these fabricated gods or these idols are just nonsense. He was sure about this. He was just making fun of them, making fun of those idol worshippers in this sense that he wanted to come to their senses by asking questions from them and trying to nullify their fallacy that they were making about these fabricated gods and these idols. That's why Prophet Abraham was never an idol worshiper, and he was always a monotheist. So if you are looking at this, you see that he said to his father and his people, "What are you worshiping?" And there is one thing that I wanted to mention here. So there is an interesting thing in the customs and the traditions of Islam that in their hadith they say that Azar, which is the name of the father of Abraham, and he was doomed. Actually, he was an idol worshipper, and as we know from Quran, his destiny was hell. The traditionalists, the Islamic scholars, said that Azar was not the father of Abraham, and it was actually his uncle. And this is wrong, you know. And if you read Quran, you clearly see that Azar was the father of Abraham. And the ignorant Muslims, because they are not reading Quran and they're not paying attention to Quran, and from the fact that when they are idol worshippers, they won't be able to understand the verses of Quran clearly. They think that the traditional Muslims think that Azar was the uncle of Abraham, but as the verses of Quran clearly state, the father. Azar was the father of Abraham. So this was one point that I wanted to clarify. And the other thing is that Prophet Abraham is asking them, what are you worshiping? Is it these fabricated gods instead of God that you want? What do you think of the Lord of the universe? He looked carefully at the stars. So if we think about it, he was trying to bring these people to their senses, you know, and say, what are these things that you are trying to worship? What are these things doing to you? For example, if you look at the stars, and at some point during the night you see the stars, but when the morning comes and the atmosphere is like blocked by the glare of the sun, you won't be able to see the stars anymore unless you have very powerful telescopes, but they can't be seen with your naked eyes. You can't see them without telescopes. So what does it tell us? It tells us that at that time when they didn't have telescopes, basically the stars vanished, you know, and he told them, he used this actually reasoning to let them know that these stars that you are worshiping, they are useless. And these idols that you have made out of wood or stone, they're also useless. They can't do anything for you. So he asked them a question. This is a very good question to ask people. What do you think of the Lord of the universe? You know, and this is something that I personally always ask from the people. And right now, by the permission of God, we have actually improved technology, and we have, for example, Hubble telescope and James Webb telescope, and we have beautiful pictures of the universe. We have beautiful pictures of nebulas where stars are born, and we have beautiful pictures of galaxies, you know, not only a group of stars, a group of galaxies, you know, we are in Milky Way galaxy, and think about it, in one picture of the James Webb telescope, you see about maybe 1,000 galaxies, maybe more galaxies, and that's just a very small, actually, point in the night sky. And what does it tell us? It tells us that the Lord of the universe is way bigger, way more actually potent and more powerful than what we can ever imagine. And at that time, probably as the messenger of covenant said, probably 8,000 years ago, Prophet Abraham was telling these people, what do you think of the Lord of the universe? So there is a lot to be discussed about these verses. He looked carefully at the stars. Then he gave up and said, I'm tired of this. They turned away from him. He then turned on their idols, saying, so he was like done with the stars, and as they like vanished, and said, I'm tired of this. And then said, would you like to eat? And talking to the idols, would you like to eat? Why do you not speak? In front of those people, wanted to basically bring them to their senses. He then destroyed them. They went to him in a great rage. Right now, that's the same thing. For example, in Shia society, people go out of their ways to worship idols and dead people and dead saints. For example, they worship Fatima, they worship Hussein, they worship Ali, they worship their lesser gods, and even in their category of idols, they have different idols. Like, for example, nobody, I haven't seen any Shia person to try to talk to, ask for intercession from the 11th Imam, because like in their stories that they have, that he was locked up in prison, and then they might even not know his name, so even among their gods, they have lesser gods and they have higher gods. And that's the same story that we have here, with the idols, that they had like major idols, and they had lesser gods, lesser idols. So the same story is true even today in the 21st century. So this is really interesting. We think that these things are done and people are done with these things, but no, they're not done. And the idea of the idol worship is still continue, but in a different shape. So they went to him in a great rage. And when you look at this verse, you see that if you say something about their idols, if you try to talk sense into them, for example, Shia people or Sunni people, they become angry because they're ignorant. They are ignorant and they have like a very strong prejudice toward their idols, and they don't want to hear you talking sense or logic into them. And that's not only the Sunni and Shia people. If you talk to other people about some other topics, even if they're atheists, still they have some sort of idol, and they become enraged by us talking logic and reason into them. He said, how can you worship what you carve? So basically, it's a very good question. You have created these things. How can you worship them when God has created you and everything you make? They said, let us build a great fire and throw him into it. So see, they were tired. And this is the same thing with these days, tyrannical systems, that when they have, like, for example, especially in so-called Islamic countries, the Sunni countries or Shia countries, if you say something against their gods, their idols, they would kill you. Easily they will kill you. They will hang you. They will stone you. They will torture you in the name of their idols. And they label you as, there is a verb, there is a word in Arabic, muharib, basically like the enemy of God. And we have to ask whether you guys are the friend of God, but they are not. They are the enemy of God themselves. But then easily they build a fire for you and they throw you into it, and that's what happened to Prophet Abraham. They schemed against him, but we made them the losers. He said, I am going to my Lord. He will guide me. My Lord, grant me righteous children. We gave him good news of a good child. And we have here that actually Prophet Abraham had two sons. And the first one was Ishmael, and the second one was Isaac. as we know. And Isaac was the one who helped Prophet Abraham to build the Kaaba in Mecca. And about the next verses, which is about the satanic dream that Prophet Abraham saw, it was actually Ishmael that he wanted to sacrifice based on his dream that we know from the verses of Quran and from what Dr. Rashad Khalifa, the messenger of covenant, told us, that it was a satanic dream. And interestingly enough, if you read the verses with regard to this in Torah, the Old Testament, you see that Isaac has been mentioned. But there are many caveats to that. There are many problems with that, that if you're interested, you can read the Muslim perspective. I don't exactly remember which number, but if you could go through the Muslim perspectives edited by Dr. Rashad Khalifa. There is a very great explanation of everything, all the verses of the Bible there, which explains exactly why it was not Isaac and it was Ishmael, and on top of everything, it was a satanic dream. So when he grew enough to work with him, he said, "My son, I see in a dream that I am sacrificing you." So this my son refers to Ishmael. "What do you think?" He said, "Oh, my father, do what you are commanded to do. You will find me, God willing, patient." And if you pay attention to this verse, he was so, like, the Prophet Abraham was so clement and he was so obedient that when he saw this in his dream, that he's sacrificing his son, he didn't even think about this fact that this could be a satanic dream, you know. And from the next verses, we see that there is the interference by God for stopping Abraham from doing this, you know, and saving Ishmael and saving Abraham basically from this horrendous act to be happen. And what we know from the actually verses of Quran and from the footnotes is that the most merciful never advocates evil, based on verse 728. As with Job, Satan claimed that Abraham loved his son too much and was permitted to put Abraham to that severe test, and it was really a very, like, it was very, very severe test. And this is the verse 728. "Examine all inherited information. They commit a gross sin, then say, 'We found our parents doing this, and God has commanded us to do it.' Say, 'God never advocates sin.' Are you saying about God what you do not know?" And based on this verse, we understand that God never orders you to do actually something terrible, such as, like, for example, killing your child. And unfortunately, in actually all around the world, if you talk to people about the story of Abraham, the ignorant people, and interestingly enough, Satan made sure that everybody, even if they believe in God or if they don't believe in God, has heard this story, you know, this story of Prophet Abraham taking Ishmael to be sacrificed. And the thing is that Satan tweaked this story and has made everybody believe that God ordered Abraham to do that. And we know from the verses of Quran, based on 728, God never advocates sin. So basically, God never ordered Prophet Abraham to take his son to be sacrificed. And it was a satanic dream from the devil and from Satan. And he was actually allowed by God to put Prophet Abraham to the test, but it was not the order from God for Prophet Abraham. This is very important. And if somebody believes that actually Prophet Abraham was ordered by God to do this, then they're not Muslims. They're not submitters, because they are actually attaching something, they're associating something to God that is not true about God based on this verse. You know, they say that we found our parents doing this, and God has commanded us to do it. And are you saying about God what you do not know? So basically, this verse clearly tells us that we have to examine stuff, that the information that has come down from our parents, and we have to make sure that we understand everything, and the information that we believe in is the correct information. And the only source that we can safely believe in is Quran, and we know that Quran is word for word, letter for letter from God, because of the miracle of 19, the mathematical miracle in Quran. This is the structure. This is the thing that gives it the bones, and actually helps us improve our faith and know that everything which has been said in the Quran and has been said by the Messenger of Covenant as the footnotes, or in the sermons, or in the appendices at the end of the Quran, are the absolute truth, because he was a true messenger of God. So, inshallah, I will continue with the next verse. They both submitted. So Abraham and Ishmael submitted, and he put his forehead down to sacrifice him. And here we have God intervenes to save Abraham and Ishmael. We called him, O Abraham, you have believed the dream. We thus reward the righteous. That was an exacting test indeed. We ransomed Ishmael by substituting an animal sacrifice, and we preserved his history for subsequent generations. Peace be upon Abraham. When we thus reward the righteous, he's one of our believing servants. So, mashallah, if you can read this and then think about it like for hours, how that happened, and like how in the end Abraham was saved. And all of us, like all submitters, go through tests. They might not be as severe as the test that we see here for Job, as we have in the Arabic Ayub and Abraham. These were like severe tests for them, but we will go through tests, and there is no doubt about it. And we have the actually verses in Quran that I'm just paraphrasing. And do we think that we will be like left to say that we believe without being put to the test? Basically, all the submitters will be put to the test, and this is like exactly, the tests are designed in a way that are true about that specific person, and the time of the tests might differ, and it might be like 5 years, maybe less, maybe more, depending on the number of tests, depending on the faith of the person, how there are many actually factors involved. And inshallah, we can all like steadfastly persevere during the tests, and then and inshallah we will be rewarded, in the end, as all the prophets and all the actually messengers and all the righteous people have been rewarded. So God willing, I will continue. Birth of Isaac. Then we gave him the good news about the birth of Isaac to be one of the righteous prophets. We blessed him and Isaac. Among their descendants, some are righteous and some are wicked transgressors. So from this part, we understand that Isaac was born after Ishmael. So he was not born yet when this exacting test came. So definitely, based on the verses of Quran, this person who was taken actually to be sacrificed by Prophet Abraham, who was actually in the end saved, was Ismail, and it was not Isaac, because the verses, even in the Quran, the birth of Isaac comes after that exacting test up top. So, God willing, I will continue. Moses and Aaron. We also blessed Moses and Aaron. We delivered them and their people from the great disaster. We supported them until they became the winners. We gave both of them the profound scripture. We guided them in the right path. We preserved their history for subsequent generation. Peace be upon Moses and Aaron. We thus reward the righteous. Both of them were among our righteous servants. So there is something interesting here that we should pay attention to. that many people believe that the Torah was given to Moses, but this is not true. I mean, and also the Messenger of Covenant mentioned this, that the Torah, or the Old Testament as we know it, was given to different prophets of Israel. One of the prophets of Israel was Moses, and we know that his brother Aaron was also actually a prophet. And as the verses of Quran clearly state, uh, scripture, like part of the Old Testament, was also given to Aaron as well as the Moses. And we have like other prophets of in the Old Testament. For example, one of them that we are sure about is Malachi, that the Messenger of Covenant actually mentioned, and that's the last book of actually the Old Testament. If you check the Old Testament, you will see that the last book is Malachi, and Malachi was one of the prophets of actually Israel. And so this is something that needs to be clarified, that the whole Old Testament was or Torah was not given to Moses, and Moses was only one of the prophets. Inshallah, I will continue. Elias was one of the messengers. He said to his people, "Would you not work righteousness? Do you worship a statue instead of the supreme creator? God, your Lord and the Lord of your forefathers." They disbelieved him. Consequently, they had to be called to account. Only God's servants who are absolutely devoted to him alone are safe. We preserved his history for subsequent generations. Peace be upon Elias and all those like Elias. With us reward the righteous. He was one of our believing servants. So I personally don't have much information about Elias, and I honestly don't know whether he was actually a messenger or a prophet, whether he had book or was he simply a messenger who actually came after another prophet. And inshallah, during the questions and comments section of the study, inshallah, we could discuss this and see if brothers and sisters have more information about Elias, or there's something in Quran about this person, Elias. But again, as the story goes for all the prophets and messengers, he was sent to actually a group of people, and definitely they were worshiping statues, they were worshiping idols, the same as the time of Abraham, and the same as the time of other prophets and messengers. And then he told them, do righteousness. They were not probably doing righteousness, and they disbelieved him. And this is not strange, and this is not surprising. So the story is the same for all of them. And interestingly enough, all the people act still in the same way. Very few people really believe. And if you look at submission right now, as much as it is clear, as much as it is obvious and very logical, still many people, when you tell them hours, you talk to them hours about submission and the mathematical miracle, they are just to say interesting, and then they turn away, and then they go and do something else. So basically, this is not right now, based on our own experience, we won't be surprised as how people act toward the message that the messengers or the prophets bring to a group of people. And yes, so this is about Elias and Lot. So we know from what actually the messenger of covenant said, Lot was a messenger, and he was not a prophet. He was just a messenger, and he was like synchronous by the time of Abraham, because we have from the verses of Quran that actually two angels in the shape of men came to Abraham, and they wanted to give him the good news that we have up here about the birth of Isaac. So those two angels gave the good news to Prophet Abraham. And then Abraham and his wife were surprised. I said that how is that possible? Because they were old. But then there's nothing impossible for God. And then we know that. And then Isaac was given to Prophet Abraham. And so from the verses, and then they were on their ways to Lot. So there was Lot as a messenger of God in the community of Sodom and Gomorrah, and those were like transgressing people. And we have these verses here, so inshallah I will read them. Lot was one of the messengers. We saved him and all his family. Only the old woman was doomed. So the wife of Lot was doomed, and we know clearly from the verse of Quran that she was among the transgressors. We annihilated all the others. You still pass by their ruins by day, And subhanallah, there was a actually I remember probably maybe about 5 or 6 months ago, we were we had another Quran study that we played one of the videos that showed the ruins of Sodom and Gomorrah and how they were destroyed, and their ruins still exist by the day. And if you search online, you would be able to find it, and it's close to the today's Palestine and Israel location, in that area close to Jerusalem, and then you would be able to see the ruins of it. There are some videos of it, and yes, so this is what happened to them. They were completely annihilated, and by night. Would you understand? So this is something that happened to the people of Lot, and the Lot and his family were actually saved, except the wife of Lot. And that's also true for the wife of Noah as well. So we have verses in Quran that state that wife of Noah, as well as his son, at least one of his sons, as much as I know, were among the transgressors. So inshallah, I will continue Jonah, or as we have it in Quran, Zannun, so, and there is another word for it, Yunus, So Jonah was one of the messengers. He escaped to the loaded ship. He rebelled, and thus he joined the losers. Consequently, the fish swallowed him, and he was the one to be blamed. So, based on these actually verses, and based on what the messenger of covenant told us, so he was, I think he was messenger, but please correct me if I'm wrong. That he was sent to a group of people, and then basically he couldn't continue, and then as we have it in the verses, he rebelled. He basically stopped his mission, and then here it says that he joined the losers. And then what happened as a result of his rebellion and not doing the mission that he was supposed to be doing, the fish swallowed him. And then, and as the verses here clearly say, he was the one to blame, so there was nobody else to be blamed. He stopped what he was supposed to be doing. And it says the next verse, if it were not that he resorted to meditation on God while he was swallowed by the fish, and see how God is merciful, that he gave him another chance while he was swallowed by the fish. He was like inside the belly of the fish. He was not what do we call it? He was not like eaten in that sense that be completely done with. He was just there, and it was the will of God that he could like resort to meditation in the belly of the fish and understand that he had done the wrong thing of stopping his mission. And then we have in the next verse, he would have stayed in its belly until the day of resurrection. So if basically God is saying that if like the only being, like the only existence, I don't know how to say the word in English, but technically, God is the only, actually, I don't want to use the word person, so instead I use the word existence. Um, God is the only one who can actually help you. Yes, yes, Shima is saying the only one. So yes, God, thank you. So God is the only one who can actually um, do anything for you, you know. So basically, from these verses, we clearly understand what it really means to submit to God, you know, because He's the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. Everything is in His hands. He is the omniscient, the omnipotent, the omnipresent. You know, everything is done with His will. And if it was not that He resorted to meditation on God and God alone, He would have. The verse clearly says that He would have stayed in the belly of the fish until the day of resurrection. Period. You know, there was nobody who could help him. So basically, these verses clearly from the beginning that they had Abraham, we had Lot, and we have Elias, and all the Noah. You know, all the prophets and messengers up to this point, we clearly understand that if we delve on into these actually verses and we ponder on them, you know, we think on them deeply, then we will understand that there were many uh, cases and many situations and many times for us, as I say, like submitters and like basically all the creatures on the surface of the planet Earth, that it is only God that can do something for you. There were some situations in your life that only God could help you, and miraculously, God helps you. You know, if you just believe in God, and then He will guide you to the right path. You know, and then if He wills, you can see the truth. You know, you can witness the truth. You can be guided on the right path. So it's only the will of God. You know. Yes, just I'm actually like really, I would say, flabbergasted by these verses, you know, when I read them, you know, and when I think about them like deeply. And these two verses specifically, if you pay attention to them, if it were not that he resorted to meditation on God, he would have stayed in its belly until the day of resurrection, and period. Nobody could help him. That's what it is. We had him thrown up into the desert. So see, now the fish basically probably like threw him out into the desert, and we had a tree of eatable fruit grown for him. See, these are the miracles of God, you know. So he came out of the mouth of the fish, and then there was a tree by the will of God grown for him. Then we sent him to 100,000 or more. So when he was like back on his feet, and he was like he learned his lesson that he needs to go on, and when he repented completely, God again sent him back to groups of people, 100,000 or more, and then basically he did his job. Yes, subhanallah. um, so interestingly enough, so as the footnote of this verse, the Quran mentions 30 numbers: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 19, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 99, 100, 200, 300, 1000, 2000, 3000, 5000, 50,000, and 100,000. The sum of these numbers is 162,146, or 19 times 8,534. Subhanallah. So this is one of like another miracle of the mathematical miracle inside Quran, that all these numbers, you know, are put in this way in Quran, that actually the sum of these numbers becomes a multiple of 19. And like previously, before submission, it was my question why God says in Quran that Noah lived for 1,000 years, 50 years less. So at that time I was ignorant, and I didn't know about the mathematical code in Quran. the 19 base mathematical code in Quran, and I said why God couldn't say like or why God didn't say Nauzubillah, why God didn't say 950, and now we understand why that was the case. Or when Moses was summoned to Mount Sinai, if I'm not mistaken, it is said in Quran, I'm paraphrasing, that he was summoned for 30 nights, and then we increased it by 10, so we have two numbers here, 10 and 30. So this is the reason, right now we understand that this is the reason. And you can look at the appendix 1 and see more miraculous things about the actually the mathematical code in Quran, and that would just simply blows your mind if you are willed by God to be guided, inshallah. They did believe, they did believe, and we let them enjoy this life. Ask them if your Lord has daughters while they have sons. Did we create the angels to be females? Did they witness that? And this is something that actually a lie that have probably some idol worshippers have associated with God, and saying that like the angels are females. And this is these are the rhetorical questions that God is asking from them. That did those people witness the creation of the angels to be females? And we know that the humans and jinns, based on actually the verses of Quran and what the Messenger of Covenant tells us, we were excluded from witnessing the creation process. So we have no idea how the creation process happened. And inshallah, if God wills, on the day of resurrection, like in the hereafter, we will witness these things and think about the quality of the videos. Right now, for example, we have like 4K, on a screen, but then I have no idea what the quality of the archives of the first universe would be, and we could see inshallah, we could see the creation process, and see what happened. I mean, and how we rebelled, and we were like probably 50-50 in the great feud. And we will inshallah witness all that, and inshallah God helps us that we stay on this path and steadfastly persevere and be obedient to his commands. And with that, God willing, I will finish the study. And if you have questions and comments, thank you.
MashaAllah.
MashaAllah. MashaAllah, brother Masoud. MashaAllah.
brother.
MashaAllah.
MashaAllah. Thank you.
MashaAllah.
Yeah, mashallah, when like you were talking about Abraham and the idols and many other prophet and messengers, the stories that God is explaining to us through the Quran. The core of the reason is that, as we understand, mashallah, is that, we are no different. Everybody is born in a situation when they open their eyes in this world, and that this world is basically a test for us. And then you will be born in a situation where you will see idols and you will see the message, and you will have to make a decision based on the information is provided to you to sort out the bad and pick the right answer so that you can be saved. And mashallah, this is a great blessing that we were even just talking about the other day on the Quran study, that I don't know what we have done, that we saw the bad message and we saw the good message and we sorted out and mashallah become a submitter of God alone. And this is a great blessing for us, mashallah. Many times people don't realize that traditional Muslims and any other religion that they see, they think that this is it. They are born and they don't have to do anything. You have to actively, there's a difference between active and passive. Active is the word active mean you actively sorting out the situation, and passively is like autopilot. You're not doing anything. It's like when the pilot takes off, they're actively engaged in everything. But when they reach the cruising speed and then they just put an autopilot, that's a passive situation. And people are living passively on autopilot. And it is very sad situation to see that, because you need to look around, find the idols, and mashallah, when we saw all these idols, and then other than Quran, that hadith and everything else, and whatever we saw, it didn't make any sense with the Quran. And mashallah, just like Abraham and many other prophets, with the grace of God, we were able to analyze and see the truth. It was a very tough moment for us too at that moment, that to leave everything what we've been taught and go with the message. At that point, maybe we didn't understand at that time much, but we said, no, this is the Quran, this is the word of God, and this is what we're going to follow. And we are not going to take anything else. People give us excuses. No, you don't understand this verse. This verse mean, though God is, like, for example, God is saying that, when you come to meet me, in the contractor, this is the wudu you do, and these are the steps. And we say, yes, sir. We took that, though we were told that, this is wrong, you're doing wrong, but we took it. This is where we were breaking the idol, just like Abraham was breaking idols. We were breaking idols, mashallah. All praise be to God.
Yeah, mashallah, brother. You explained very nicely, Brother Ali, and also brother. Yeah. And I want to comment about the. Yeah, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Yes, 3793. I think Brother Masoud also explained very nicely. Yeah, he then destroyed them. I think he destroyed them their idols. Actually, he destroyed them their idols not to hurt them. Yeah, just he wanted to give them reason that the statue, they don't have any power. They cannot speak. They cannot understand. And even when he destroyed them, and they don't have any power. Actually, he destroyed them to not to hurt those people, to wake them up. What they are doing for the idols. They don't have any power. This is the thing. Sometimes people misunderstood. Oh, he destroyed them, and also we can go and somewhere and we can still destroy them, because the Prophet Ibrahim also destroyed their idols. Actually, he destroyed their idols not to harm them, hurt them, like to give them reason. Yeah, this is also understood that way. Yeah, mashallah.
I just want to see the peace in the world, like a forever peace. as long as like I really want to try this peace and peace and peace. Like the puzzle. There's one missing piece that we should call it as peace. Thanks for your effort, guys. Thanks so much.
MashaAllah. So I had one question. So does anybody know any more like information about Elias, which is mentioned in Quran? If they like, if you have more information, who he was, where he was sent, based on the verses of Quran, or if the Messenger of Covenant said anything about him, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, no, brother, I haven't heard anything from Messenger of the Covenant about Ilyas. We do have people in our country named Ilyas. Probably they took the name from Quran, but yeah, I don't.
So that's the extent of it.
Yeah.
Oh,
But you
mashallah.
know, one thing I can say is, to me, it's the message. God gave the amount of information that is giving to us is relevant, and it's to look for what's what is the message basically, and what I can learn from it basically. If God didn't think it was important to talk about, even though God says about Lot and his community, who was a community, doesn't even make, you don't know them, they're just XYZ, and which is part of time zone they're born, and which part of the country. Maybe we know the zone, but it doesn't really change the story for us because we're not personally attached to any of them. So but we need to look at the answer, we look at the message and what we can learn. Mashallah, praise God.
Yes, mashallah. So yeah, the interesting thing is that like the story is the same. They were sent to a group of people. They gave them the message of God alone, and then worship God alone. And then uh, some of them believed, some of them like disbelieved, and they tried to become enemy of that messenger or prophet. And then eventually they were annihilated. So that's exactly what happens. Like in all the story, like all the facts that actually we see written in Quran, mashallah.
Also, I wanna just kind of talk quickly about the Abraham, about sacrificing the son. It's a great blessing that we have a messenger from God who has explained to us, because when you give somebody a test, it has to be some a test that is, it's not, it doesn't look bad, as we if anybody has the children, they know that how much we love our kids. And to pull a joke like that, it would be like, to tell somebody, okay, I want to test you, go do this, this would be a kind of a sick joke, and before we thought that this dream came from God, and it was kind of a negative, like a bad taste in our mouth about our creator. Would just like kind of, we have a thought that, why would God test Abraham like that? And but you take it before messenger, the covenant, we took it, this is what we taught. But mashallah, with the grace of God, God does not pull jokes like that. God does not want people to, do this kind of things. This is like a sick joke type of thing. And you can see now that we understand who can think of something like that. Satan. He can think something horrible. Sometimes you have a negative thought and you said, how can you even think of something like that? I mean, and then say to God is the one who put that dream in Abraham's brain. Oh man, so this is a great blessing for us that now we know that God never advocate anything bad. So this is another blessing that if you ever have a dream, something like that, you feel negative, that, my creator doesn't advocate bad thoughts and bad, all this is coming from Satan, and only good things come from God. MashaAllah. Praise God.
Yes, brother. Yes, thank you for your comment. And yeah, so yeah, the God actually never advocate. Now from the Quran and from the Messenger of Covenant, he explained very well for us. So God never advocate evil. And the other day I was watching one of the Messenger video, and he was saying that God never harm anybody. Any harm, God never harm anybody. So likewise, the people, some submitter also, they advocating that the circumcision. So this is also a kind of satanic thing. So because why God will harm to cut something for a young boy or young child as soon as they're born, and he has to go through the operation is a harmful act. So God never advocates evil, and God does not want to harm anybody else. So even from this satanic dream, and we can get answer also from those people, who believe that it's from the time of Ibrahim, and God commanded Ibrahim to do this circumcision. So you see, it's a kind of same thing. How can God command to Ibrahim to do this such evil act? So yeah, really, I don't know. Even there is you can get answer from so many sides, but still, some submitters believe still the circumcision is from all the way to Prophet Abraham. Yeah, mashallah. Thanks.
Yes, mashallah. Well, we all know that one thing that can keep us stay steadfast and make us stay on the path is that we actually love God, and we should love God because He's the most merciful, and He has given us like this final chance, and He loves us despite our being we were wicked and we were really bad that we ended up here, and yet He is the most merciful. So what Satan does with stories like Abraham sacrificing his child and then claiming and fabricating the idea through the people whose hearts are sick, the people who listen to his whispers and develop and promote this idea that God commanded Abraham to kill his son, while we know that it's not true. This actually, disconnects people from God. It's enough for a person to hear this early on, like as a kid, that God commanded Abraham to kill his son, and then all of a sudden, you don't feel the love that you should feel, and that love is necessary for us to stay on the path. We should love God so that we can stay steadfast through the tests as submitters, inshallah, because that love is something that gives you energy to wake up every morning, and then to strive, inshallah. So that's the intention. That's the intention behind such fabrications and such devilish ideas that God actually commanded Abraham to do that. And Satan wants us to not love God and to be afraid. Well, we we are at awe, we know our God is awesome, and we are reverent, but we are not supposed to be afraid of him. And because when we make mistakes, we all do, he is the one that we should go to and talk to and seek refuge to. If we don't love God, if we are afraid of him, who are we going to seek refuge in? That's something that Satan doesn't want us to feel, that he is our only refuge. MashaAllah.
MashaAllah, sister. MashaAllah.
Sorry, Shima, you mentioned, you said if we don't love God and we are afraid of him, or
No, I said we shouldn't. I said this is what Satan wants us to do. He wants us to be afraid of him.
to be afraid of
God.
God?
Yeah. That's, my understanding. Because when you hear the story that God commanded, the false story that God commanded Abraham to kill his son. So when you're a kid and you hear this, it's gonna, for me, it's going to, it broke my relation with God. As a child, I was scared that God commanded Abraham to do that. But then as a submitter, I realized that it was not a commandment from God, and that he is our only refuge. He was he was actually Abraham's refuge. He saved Abraham. So it's not, I'm sorry if I wasn't clear, but it's that, like, I believe, it's my understanding that Satan doesn't want us to love God.
Right. Yeah. I think
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying, but I think I think maybe when you say fear and being scared, I guess that kind of maybe throws us off in the sense sometimes, because we are in a way supposed to fear God,
Yeah,
because
sure.
but that's a different kind of fear, right? I mean,
Yes.
the thing is I think the word that might be more appropriate in that is that I mean, you're not supposed to. I mean, it makes, when you see that God ordered Abraham to kill his son, it makes you want to hate God more than fear
Yeah.
him in that
Yeah.
sense, right? I mean, you want to love God and you don't want to hate God, and knowing that God is someone that who wants you to kill your son will make, or anybody's son will want to make you want to hate that God. But fearing God is a different story, in the sense that we have committed a big crime, by coming in this world and failing to side with God, and we're really halfway to hell. And we read about when we read about the descriptions of heaven and hell, we're supposed to reverence God, and we're supposed to fear the retribution, that will keep us on our toes, and being righteous. So, but I mean, that's a different kind of fear, right? But that's fear based on our own actions, fear based on the situation, that based on our own ignorance, we put ourselves in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the word that you used is more appropriate. Like, that's what I wanted to convey. Of course, we are. We fear God when we follow His commandments, and we repent, so that He can take us back, inshallah. But it's not that, like, Satan is trying to make people hate God so that they run away from Him instead of going and seeking refuge in Him. Yes, mashallah, brother.
Yeah, I think there's also Huda shared Surah 13, verse 12. Says he's the one who shows you the lightning is a source of fear as well as hope, and he initiates the loaded clouds. So I guess we have reverence for God, and we have hope. I mean, reverence is kind of like extreme respect, and fear sort of together. um, and I mean, but that's like you said, I mean, really, based on what we did. I mean, the messenger of the covenant talks about it. I mean, he says, like, we are basically, we're halfway to hell, right? the fact that we're here now in this world going through these tests. I mean, we're halfway there, you know, and knowing how terrible hell is and knowing what that eternal life could look like, you know, it's like you have got one foot in heaven and one foot in hell. I mean, yeah, and you could fall on either side. It is a very, very scary situation to be in. So, and in our day-to-day life, I mean, we should really be reverencing God and fearing the retribution, you know, fearing the day of judgment, you know, the fear of the day of judgment, I think, is a very real thing that, you know, we all should have in order for us to be mindful, so, you know, we can become successful. Because it's like, you know, you when you do when you're motivated to become successful in your life, right, there's uh you know, multiple things that motivate you, right? There's motivation for you to you know, be successful, you know, the joy of being successful, and it's also the fear of failure, you know, that keeps you going forward, right? And so I think they're both very important for people. But yeah, really, I mean, this idea that, you know, God is a, an entity that will order you to kill your son or anything bad, you know, coming from God, you know, it's really Satan trying to defame God, right? Satan has done a good job in defaming God by saying this stuff, by saying other stuff as well, right? Everything that Satan has done, you know, putting God in, painting God in such a bad picture, right? Like, especially starting with Abraham, like, God, I mean, Satan has used Abraham to paint the worst picture of God, you know, like the one where you see also not just this part, but also the part that it talks about how, you know, he abandoned his son and his wife in this you know, valley on his own, when God clearly talks about how God commissioned him to you know, purify the Kaaba and to, you know, keep this land for worshiping him, and you know, uh, uh, you know, that was his job, right? And so, like, you know, the idea that someone so you know, will have a young baby and a wife, you know, so in such a vulnerable state, and he would leave her in the middle of the desert, abandon her, and God doing this. And then there's other ones where, you know, we see that about God, where it talks about Ishmael and Isaac, and, you know, God wanting you know, Abraham to divorce his wife, you know, and abandon the child, abandon the children, you know, and obviously, you know, then God wanting Abraham to, you know, circumcise and mutilate, you know, so many people, including himself. And so, I mean, all of this stuff really is done to defame God, and also, you know, God wanting to kill uh, Jesus too, right? I mean, that's another level of idol worship and blasphemy. But on top of that, also, you know, God wanting to kill another person, to like God wanting to sacrifice a human being, you know, to save a bunch of people, you know, like, I mean, you know, I mean, this is like such a satanic thing, like we see in the movies, you know, like they have to sacrifice other people, you know.
Brother Suleiman, are you still talking? Because we can't hear you.
I think I got disconnected, but I think I'm done.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from anybody else? All right. So I guess we could, if there are no other comments or questions, God willing, we could probably conclude the study today. So thank you all for joining us. Mashallah. Thank you, Brother Masoud, for the study. God willing, our next Quran study in English will be on Tuesday at 2 p.m. Pacific time. God bless you all. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu
Assalamu alaikum.
alaikum. Allah
Assalamu
Muhammad.
alaikum.